Hey everyone, Big Scary Volcano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Perfume Genius record, Too Bright. Now with this review right here, we're going to be experimenting a little bit. It's going to be a co-review live right here in the Needle Drop office, and believe it or not, we're going to be having Cal Chuchesta in on this review, giving his point of view, talking about what he likes, what he dislikes about this new Perfume Genius record. It's kind of a weird thing to try, but we're going to let Cal start off right here, sort of telling me what his least favorite song on the album was.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Well, the Perfect Genie record, my least favorite music from it are these real sad songs.
Hold on. There's two things that's going to make this review perfect that I totally forgot about. Two things.
What?
One, I'm going to need you not to talk for the rest of the video. Don't talk again.
Oh.
And two, transition, dramatic lighting. Transition. Perfume Genius is the musical project of multi-instrumentalist Mike Hadreas.
Super edgy. Very genius.
This is his third full-length album, and I have been hotly anticipating this record, considering I am a big fan of his songwriting style. His two previous full-lengths, Learning and Put Your Back Into It, each album a heartbreak, and every song on these records a teardrop. Mike's songs typically are kind of short, skeletal, instrumentally and melodically. A lot of these songs sort of revolve around some very simple piano chords and Mike's incredibly powerful and emotionally charged voice. And the chords that Mike works into his songs, they're often played at a very slow or easygoing pace. These progressions at times feel like they're informed a little bit by gospel music or maybe even some vintage pop. On his latest songs, Mike has been finding ways to build up his typically simple piano-led tunes with a lot of backing instrumentation. And Mike's embrace of that studio sound quality, a better sound quality in his music, has led to a bit of a night and day difference on his first two records. Mike continues down the path he was forging on Put Your Back Into It, essentially finding new ways to put lush instrumentation behind his very emotionally choked up dirges. And Mike also has a few musical experiments up his sleeves on this record too, which is funny to think because he's not wearing sleeves. However, the opening track on this LP just kicks this album off in usual Perfume Genius fashion. The song I Decline is a beautiful, spacious piano ballad with Mike singing some very sparse lyrics. He sings very slowly and it makes it seem almost as if he's saying more than what he actually is, but the lines of this track are pretty bare. The message is pretty simple. No thanks. I decline. He seems to decline a tired line. He declines what seems like an offer from an angel to save him. I don't know if he's saying no to the cliche or if he is saying no to the idea of salvation in general. Either way, it means for another Perfume Genius album where Mike essentially grabs happiness by the horns and wrestles it down to the ground. But learning from the success of past singles such as Hood, Mike has made sure to put plenty of tracks on this new record that are actually quite visceral. Mike delivers his most instrumentally dense tracks yet on this LP, and inadvertently, I think the end result is kind of poppy. Maybe Perfume Genius's most accessible record yet. There's some really prominent percussion on these tracks, and the backing instrumentation is no longer as faint as it was as Put Your Back Into It. Take the song Queen, for example, great lead single from this LP. Buzzing keyboard notes on this track, some really dramatic drum fills, some descending, epic, mystical synthesizer melodies, and a really explosive chorus too, that is not only loaded with just strange wee melodies, but also what seems like a kind of backing up the percussion. And the lyrics of this track are actually pretty interesting too. It kind of seems like Mike is painting this picture of a flawed, crumbling, emotionally inept matriarch. Moving on from this track to the song Fool, which has a seriously vintage feel to it, like a piece of vintage pop. From the finger snaps to the saxophones to the upright bass, this song feels old school. The song moves pretty quickly through a very brief and beautiful verse, and then right in the middle of these two verses on the song, all of a sudden, things just go ethereal, and Mike's voice just climbs up and up and up. It's almost as if we've had a dream sequence in the middle of a song. I love the song My Body, which is maybe the most experimental track on the entire record. Feels almost as if the song was written by Timber Timbre and Shoo Shoo and then handed over to Mike to perform. This song has a 3/4 time signature, eerie bass line, some of Mike's most twisted vocals and lyrics yet. It's like Eraserhead sick. On the song Long Pig, we see Mike singing over these really tightly wound, bubbling synthesizer sequences that sound like they could have come out of a Vangelis song or a Tangerine Dream song. But there's some very primal percussion going on in the background. Mike does a fantastic job of mixing these two worlds, the futuristic and just the very primeval. And another strange track, but maybe one that I don't necessarily connect with, is I'm a Mother, a song where Mike's vocals seem to be just pitched so far downward they're kind of unintelligible, and he sings with his voice just cracking, and it's like he can barely hold a note. He's just so distraught, he just can't hold it together, and it's the oddest sounding thing. So there are definitely quite a few new ideas. There are a lot of firsts on this Perfume Genius record. There are actually a handful of songs on this thing that approach 4 minutes in length, which is kind of a rarity in the Perfume Genius discography. Even the songs on this record that stick to Mike's typically simple formula of just heart-wrenching piano ballads kind of get uplifted a little bit, at least toward the end, where all of a sudden they break into a different musical phrase or introduce some really epic instrumentation, songs like No Good or Don't Let Them In. But I do have my reservations about this record. I think that with Mike extending more songs and trying to write longer songs, there are some tracks that stay engaging throughout and there are some that don't. Plus, even with the introduction of more instrumentation, it's not like Michael's songwriting style at its core has changed that much. So there is a little bit of melodic deja vu here and there on this record if you're familiar with Mike's back catalog. While I have no doubt that Mike can and will change moving into the future, which is exemplified by tracks like Grid, there are some songs here that kind of show that Mike's approach to writing piano tunes can be a little limited at times. And there are some moments here, namely on the song No Good, where I feel like the bit of instrumentation or maybe the instrumental interlude or the instrumental shift toward the end of the track feels a little kind of tacked on. But for the most part, this is Perfume Genius sounding emotional and gorgeous as usual. While I do personally prefer his last full-length album a little bit more, I think this record is great as well, and I highly recommend it. I'm feeling a strong 8 to a light 9 on this LP. Transition. If you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Perfume Genius, Too Bright, Forever.